Meeting will come to order, please. The notice requirements of the Open Public Meetings Act for this meeting have been satisfied. Would you turn off electronic equipment, and we'll stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Attention, salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Call the roll, please.
Mayor Becker?
Here.
Commissioner Amadeo?
Here.
Commissioner Blumberg?
For the record, Commissioner Blumberg went south to pick his two daughters up from college to bring them home for the holidays.
Thank you. We will go right to department head reports, and why don't we start with you, Scott?
Well, we're starting with A today. So I bring good news. Are we on the tape here? We working okay? All right, tonight we have a resolution to accept the determination that the bulkhead along Amherst Avenue built by, I'll call it Lamberti's, is accepted by the city. That's 588 feet of bulkhead. Ed Dennis has given us the letter confirming that he's accepted that construction. This represents not quite $1 million of new bulkhead, which is not including a bulkhead that's currently, as you know, under construction. So I would ask you at our next meeting to approve the resolution. If there's anything you want to discuss on that, let's certainly do so. We have the hold harmless from the attorney regarding the site plan aspects of the additional public parking that was provided. However, things like replacing asphalt, as we just heard, they can't do that this time of year, but they'll do it in the spring. It's part of their site plan package. And so I would say I recommend the endorsement of the resolution that I wrote for you to adopt. But the important thing would be for the mayor to be authorized to have that confirmatory deed that that portion, that 231 feet of Amherst Avenue is vacated, because they've fulfilled their end of the bargain. And I think when you really look at it, it's part of our overall game plan to deal with flooding. 588 feet of bulkhead, that's a lot of bulkhead, that's a lot of money that was saved. And now if and when they build that new building, instead of getting $500 a year, we'll get whatever that rate will generate. I think Commissioner Amadeo looks like he might want to say something on this one too, which you're certainly welcome to. And so if you don't have any issues with it, I would ask you to approve that tonight. Other than that, Mayor, it's pretty quiet. Commissioner, I don't have anything further.
Thank you, Mr. Abbott. Jim?
Good evening, Mayor. And I'd like to report new construction is strong. The construction, every day there's another house being built, another 2 footings today. They're putting blankets down. I told them they need to cover the footings. The other thing is we're making sure the barriers are up, and the old construction sites that are abandoned, we're going to start to go around and just tell them to remove the barriers. Our coverage is good for next week. Since Christmas falls on a Wednesday, the inspectors will all be on Tuesday and Thursday, so there shouldn't be any lapse on inspections. That's all I have to report.
Thank you, Jim. Roger, you're next.
Thank you, Mayor. We're so busy on the planning board, we needed a second meeting in January. So the first meeting will be the reorg meeting. That'll take place on January 9th in this building. And the regular meeting will be scheduled on Thursday, January 30th. And again, the back log is so great, we may need to have a second meeting in February. But everything's going smoothly. I don't know if you want to talk about the ordinances now or in the next meeting. Tonight you're introducing 3 ordinances, basically housekeeping items. One is a revise or refine the definition of half-story to make it more, that third floor has to be in the roof of the second floor. Or added that sentence. Also in the zoning chart schedule B1, where in the past, if you were building a single-family or two-family home in the multifamily zone, you had to pick a single-family column to follow. So now if you're building something in the multifamily zone, it's multifamily standards. It just simplifies, it'll get rid of many variances. And the third item was building coverage, which we've talked about for about 8 or 9 months at least, where instead of measuring around the perimeter of the ground floor, if the second floor is greater, that doesn't count. Now it's going to be whatever that shadow effect of that building footprint, that's building coverage. Again, there'll be more throughout the season, throughout the year, coming ahead to refine those ordinances. But that's pretty much it.
I think maybe so you understand the process now, the planning board will look at this ordinance, and I'm sure they may have some input, may not, but it truly is housekeeping. And Roger's gone over it with me, and I certainly concur. I think it's smart to, basically, I think that's how we applied it anyway, but now we're making sure that that's what the ordinance says, so it's clear. And so we recommend.
Correct. So the next process is, you refer to the planning board for consistency review, even though it is minor housekeeping items. The planning board will make their comments, determine whether it's consistent or not, and it comes back for adoption at the second meeting in January.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Bob, do you have anything else?
Just, we appreciate the public's cooperation. There's a lot of construction work going on with the Benson Avenue water tank and part of Benson Avenue being closed, the Amherst Avenue bulkhead, the reconstruction of Thurlow Avenue, Atlantic Avenue. You know, there's inconveniences, but when the projects are completed, they're going to be well worth the inconveniences that we have to deal with now when they're completed. That's all, Mayor.
Thank you, Bob. Rich?
Also on your agenda for the next meeting is a resolution modifying or approving 3 different policies for policy manual. The first is drug and alcohol policy, which is a modification. It makes it clear that if there's a person, we always had in the policy that if there was suspicion of someone being under influence, that we had a right to test him, that they couldn't continue to work. But now it makes it clear what exactly happens under that circumstance. They can't be driven home. They must submit to testing if there's a reasonable suspicion. And the second part of the change in that ordinance has to do with possession of drugs and the testing. We've always had it, of course, in there that marijuana is one of the items that are tested, but now with the legalization of, is it CBC, I think it is, and the fact that CBC is not controlled by any governmental agency, there could be varying amounts of the intoxicating portions of marijuana in or not in, even though they're not supposed to be in the CBC. The policy makes clear that if you're taking the CBC and you're required to take a drug and alcohol test, either because you're a CDC driver or for other reasons, and you show up with marijuana in your system, that there's no ability to distinguish where it came from or how it got there, and that you're guilty and are subject to whatever the rest of the policy is with respect to being under the influence of marijuana. I talk a little bit about this only because the policies in this day and age are so much more complex and complicated than they once were. We have more pages of policies now than we do pages of ordinances, but the laws are changing fast, especially in the state of New Jersey. One of those laws that have changed is a domestic violence law that has just come into play as of October. And we have a rather long policy in here. It's 20 pages, but the last 13 pages are really an appendix. But they're included in here for a specific reason, because they give a lot of information that is state law and state resources, because we're required to make available to employees or otherwise, people who are either victims or alleged victims of domestic violence that takes place either on site of the public or Margate public buildings or property, and or off-site in case of employees, that they, anybody, any of us that are in management, anybody is required to notify a designated officer, which in the case of this policy is myself, and the alternate is Kelly from HR. And there's a whole set of guidelines that we have to go through and meet with the individual that's affected. The important part that I'm emphasizing, and there will be training on this, is that any management person who's aware of a situation, whether or not it occurred on site, must report it. For the protection of the individual, we must require a safe location. The police have been dealing with this kind of thing for a long time. I've talked with the police chief, and but in addition to whether or not it's reported to the police, it must be reported to the city, and we're liable if that doesn't happen. So that's all in this policy. There will be training on it. I'm going to have to go to training to be certified on this, as is Kelly. But I'm explaining it here because it's required under the law. There's a third policy that's in this resolution that deals with overtime compensation. It's really not anything new from a Federal Labor Standards Act, other than they revised the law and changed the dollar amounts of people who are eligible and designated. So we've revised the policy according to the revisions that are made on the federal level. And again, I'm the designated person who has to provide a list for who's exempt from overtime. There's a set of forms that's included in this policy now that we're going to review internally in our office for everyone that we think is already exempt and is already on an exempt list. We're going to re-go through the policy on an individual basis, certify that, and make known to the employee that we've analyzed it in the way we have, and put a copy of in their personnel file. I talk about this more to make everybody aware of what's happening in the world of government regulation in today's world, and why we have the people and the staff to do this. It's just absolutely necessary. Thank you.
Thank you, Rich. Andrew?
Thank you, Mayor. We just finished our New York City bus trip a couple weeks ago. That was a full trip. Our adult basketball season is wrapped up and our youth basketball seasons are beginning. And just a reminder that beach badges are on sale down at the Martin Bloom Pavilion every day from 9 to 3.
Thank you, Andrew. Chief Hankinson?
Just two quick things. First of all, we just got recently notified that we got a grant from the Body Armor Replacement Fund for approximately $3,000 to replace vests for officers next year. So it actually offsets some of the cost for next year, which is always a good thing. So that was a good email. And second, last month the police department participated in the Atlantic County Heroes of Hair for No Shave November, and ironically enough, the police department finished first in the fundraising, and they raised over $7,000. So it was actually a really good event, and it turned out really well, and I know there was a lot of us who were just happy to shave at the end of the month.
Including you.
Including me. I did. After the picture, I went home and shaved, but it was really nice. For the first year we participated, to come in first was nice to have. That's all I have.
Hey, good job, man. Thank you. Chief?
Mayor, just a couple things. There's a couple handouts here regarding holiday safety, tree safety, and some pens for anyone's liking. It's very important around the holidays to be prepared and to make sure that everything you're using is fire safe. You know, we can't stress enough how important it is, especially people like to light candles this time of year. Never light candles when they're unattended. Don't leave them unattended. Make sure there's a 3-foot clearance all around them. and the same comes for heating appliances and devices. One other thing I just want to report on is we're working again with Atlantic City and Ventnor on a couple different potential regional grant opportunities with the upcoming 2019 AFG FEMA grant. And there's a few things that could be beneficial to us, especially some of it deals with the whole active shooter and stuff like that, where Atlantic City Fire Department has grasped it and really getting involved, and our guys have started doing some of the training for that. And we look forward to working with them to try and help offset some of the costs that are associated with different things that we have to purchase. And lastly, I just want to wish everyone a Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, and Happy New Year. And we look forward to seeing everybody through the holiday season. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Johanna?
All's good in the clerk's office.
Fred?
The only thing I would like to ask is, normally we do a robocall this time of year for winter. I have a script that I used last year. Like to know if you guys wanna do that again.
Is that for frozen pipes and things?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we should.
Yeah. Okay. I'll meet with the Commissioner of Public Safety, and we'll go over it.
And
Oh, anything else, Fred?
That's it.
Okay. Thank you. At this point, do you have something?
Yeah, I had a couple of things, Mayor, if you don't mind.
Go,
Or you want to wait till later?
whatever.
Well, while we were going through the department heads, I do want to thank the PBA and Police Department for all their efforts on the Stuff to Trunk, along with Ventnor and Longport, and our fire department. And our fire department for the Lunch for Santa, which is always a big success. So our children here had two main events, one on Friday the 7th and one on Saturday the 14th, which was well attended and a happy time. I think an important thing was landed in everybody's mailbox this past week. It was our Margate Business Association, the 2020 calendar. It's a great source for information for the public, all our residents and taxpayers in the city. It includes events, the holidays, board meetings, lists all our commission meetings, all our planning board meetings, all our library board meetings, which are open to the public. The times and days for the Public Works Yards Convenience Center, trash collection zones, and the days that you're going to have your trash collected. The back cover also has all the departments listed for information, any resident or taxpayer, or even visitors that need information about what's going on around the city, all the municipal directories there, and they can talk to the different departments. Also, this past week was our latest version of our Margate City newsletter, which I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, is going to be a monthly newsletter.
yes,
With information again for our residents, updates on the construction around town, and we're all aware that it is an inconvenience, but we try to do the construction in the off-season, and us as permanent residents do suffer during that period of time because of the noise, the inconvenience, the dirt, and everything goes along with it. But we prepare for our summer seasons when the influx of people are here. So the inconvenience is worth it because whether it's our water tank, which delivers water to our residents, which is an integral part of our system here in the city of Margate. It is an inconvenience, we realize that, we just try to get past it and move on. So with that said, that newsletter posts a lot of information that's going on, and it's, I think, Rich, you sent us an email, we have 900 recipients as it exists now, and it is put on our website. So people, there's a link on our website to get to it, right?
yes. And I wanted to ask Fred, as part of that, Fred, can you tell us, I think you know, how they get their name onto that electronic list?
Yeah, the method that they're using is we have an email address set up called newsletter@margate-nj.com, and if you send an email to there and you just put subscribe in the subject line, they'll pick that up and add them
onto the list for the newsletter.
Thanks.
Very good. And that's all I have, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll have a short second reading, because we will have that for that.
I see time.
You did, very efficient. In case some of you won't be here, I would also like to take the opportunity to wish everybody, and I'll do that again at the public meeting, Merry Christmas and Happy Hanukkah and Happy New Year, and we will move on. We will now, at this point, open for public comment. You have 3 minutes to speak on any subject that was discussed here at the work session today. Is there any public comment? Jody, before you begin, is it something that was discussed here?
Well, you were talking about road construction, so
Yes, we
do you
were.
wish me to wait?
Please come. Absolutely.
It has to do with the biking, so that is the road construction, the streets were taken over by biking, correct?
Your name and address into the microphone, please.
Jody Rosenberger, 603 North Delavan. Of course, I have watched the ridiculous alterations put into Margate streets, unnecessary road constructions, doubling of stop signs and one-way streets, slowing the speed limits, and I have said nothing. However, designating 2 complete streets, Monmouth and Winchester Avenue, as bikes may use full lane is ludicrous. It must be recognized that this is incorrect signage. It is not a lane that is being given over to cyclists, but 2 entire streets. I was always and still am an avid cyclist, including when I lived in New York City, cycling approximately 12 miles daily. Yet I never felt entitled to monopolize an entire street when cycling. While I read the statement on Margate's site stating that the law dictates this bike signage for the safety of school children, I would like to point out several facts. 1, these signs are not just posted around the schools, they are posted throughout the length of the city. 2, in New York City, 1.1 million students attend 1,800 public schools, yet there is not a single sign advocating those students who cycle to school take control of an entire street. 3, in the tiny town of Margate, population under 6,000, containing only 2 public schools, with student population less than 500, 2 whole streets going the entire length of the city have been designated bikes may use full lane. 4, I'm sure your esteemed governing body is aware that this full lane signage will become a nightmare during the summer months, when the summer visitors and residents who already block traffic wherever and whenever they feel the urge to do so are now given carte blanche to cycle 4, 5, 6 people across. 5, while these changes in signs have been surreptitiously thrust down our throats, it is the full-time student who carries the city 12 months of the year, and we need to drive to work in a timely manner. I am hoping that one of you governing members will be brave enough to realize the folly of this decision. Please rescind and/or alter the bike signs that have led to the loss of 2 entire streets to cyclists in our teeny tiny town of Margate. Thank you.
Thank you, Jody. Just to report, Jody, we're already on that. We're investigating some alteration to or change of the signs.
That would be terrific.
Okay.
I will keep on you,
Thank
and
you.
I will post this.
Okay.
Thank you.
Is there any other public comment?
Sewell 22 West Drive, following up on the city administrator's drug policy or proposed drug policy, I think it's imperative to keep in mind that both the cannabis and the opium or the heroin can both yield false positive test results. And it doesn't have to have the cannabis oil derived from hemp, doesn't have to have THC in it to trigger a false positive. And so far as heroin and opium are concerned, the consumption of something like a poppy seed bagel could trigger a false positive. Transdermal absorption of narcotics, most notably fentanyl, which can be fatal, is also a possibility where the person doesn't take it orally, but rather it is transdermally contracted. Plus, I think it's very important to keep in mind that opioids, unfortunately today, are prescribed like candy, and many people will be on prescribed opiates, including oxycodone, OxyContin, and yes, they'll be definitely taking pain medication and possibly working. So if you have a random drug test, that'll come up. So I think that should be an exclusion. If the person is under doctor's care and he has a valid prescription for oxycodone, OxyContin, that should not be grounds for disciplinary procedures. Thank you very much.
Thank you, John. Rich?
I don't normally address too much your comments, John, because they're comments, but in your case, your observation is correct. If an employee is on prescribed medication, they're required to report that, and if they do, it's covered in the policy.
Thank you, Rich. Any other public comment?
Steve Warner, 103 North Sumner. I'd just like to amplify what a couple people said already. I want to wish everybody a happy Hanukkah, Merry Christmas, and a happy and healthy New Year. And to everybody here and everybody in Margate, we're all blessed to live in this great city. I've said that many times. And I just wanted to make one other comment.
Sorry, Steve, I didn't hear you. Could you repeat that, please?
We're all blessed to live here in Margate. It's a beautiful city. It's clean, safe. I mean, you know, we're lucky. We're very lucky. I've always felt that way. I've only lived here 70 years, Mayor. And I just wanted to say one thing, John. They're not giving out the opium, the OxyContin and the rest of that stuff like they used to. It's been really tightened up, and it's still there. They're only giving out 1 and 2 pills, and it's not like it was. All right. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve. Any other public comment? Last chance. Is there a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I'll move to close public comment.
Excuse me, thank you. Get out of here. I second that motion.
Mayor Becker?
Yes.
Commissioner Amadeus?
Yes,
Is there a motion to close the meeting?
so moved.
Second.
Mayor Becker?
Yes.
Commissioner Amadeus?
Yes.
Meeting is adjourned. We will reconvene for the regular public meeting in 5 minutes.